Good morning and welcome to the Mid-Maine Chamber of Commerce Business Breakfast Series. My name is Kimberly Nadeau-Linloff, President and CEO of the Mid-Maine Chamber, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today. Before we begin our program, I want to take a moment to thank our 2021 Business Breakfast Series sponsors. They include AT&T, Cross Insurance, New Dimensions Federal Credit Union, Nicholson, Michoud, and Nadeau, CPAs, no relation, O'Donnell, Lee, McCowan, and Phillips, Attorney at Law, attorneys, Sheridan Construction. Our print media sponsor this year is the Morning Sentinel. Our radio sponsor is Mix 107.9, The Mix. And our video sponsor is Kennebec Savings Bank. I'd also like to thank our additional sponsor this month, Heartland. Heartland was also one of our business spotlighters out back along with Bixby & Co. I would like to remind you at this time, since I didn't do it myself, to please turn off your cell phones. There's also evaluation forms on the table. If you could take a minute before you leave to fill that out, you can either leave it face down on your table or drop it at the registration table on your way out. We use that information to bring back to our Business Breakfast Series committee, and that's what shapes our schedule for next year. I also want to welcome our newest chamber members for the month of September. They include Ampion, and Ampion is here if anybody has any questions. That's Community Solar. Corinna Creative, and Oliver and Friends Bookshop in Belgrade. Today we're going to be drawing for some fabulous door prizes, so if you didn't get your business card in, please do so. We have blank ones. If you forgot your own personal one, you can write your name on it. We have a $50 gift certificate to Cervases in Newport, donated by Heartland. Bixby gift bag with a variety of Bixby & Company products valued at $50, donated by Bixby. We have a $25 gift certificate donated by Emery's Meats, a $10 gift certificate and coffee mug donated by Aroma Joe's, a lavender and eucalyptus bath bomb donated by Valley Spring Essentials, and for those of you who have been here before, you know that these bath bombs are my favorite. They're awesome. And a $10 gift certificate, another $10 gift certificate and coffee mug, also donated by Aroma Joe's. We invite you to mark your calendar for a bunch of ribbon cuttings we're doing. This afternoon, we're going to be at Freedom's Edge Cider at 420 Quaker Hill Road in Albion around 3:30. We'd love to have you join us. On Thursday, October 14th, we're going to be at United Cerebral Palsy of Maine. It's opened a branch office at 32 College Avenue across from the post office. We'll be there at 1 p.m. And then on Thursday, the 21st, BFF Handmade Crafts and More, which is at 43 Elm Street. For those of you who remember, that used to be Bob Plord Plumbing and Heating. That'll be at 1 p.m. And we'd love it if you join us welcoming these new businesses to our area. On October 14th, Maine Growth Council for its Central Maine Tech Talk. It's held virtually from noon to 1. You can grab your lunch and listen to presenter Carrie Gallivan, co-founder and CEO of Chimani, a Yarmouth, Maine-based software company that makes free ISO and Android travel apps. These are specific to enjoying the outdoors in America's national parks. To register, you can go to centralmaine.org. On October 19th, we have our big business-to-business showcase, our big trade show, and it's going to be held at the new Harold Alfond Athletic Center on the Colby College campus. I'm guessing most of you haven't been there yet, so if you want to check that out, it is free for admission. It's noon to 6, again on the 19th. We do have booths available for chamber members who want to participate. We are also giving away a $1,000 cash prize. Admission, like I said, is free. We typically, pre-COVID, get over 2,000 people at this. We are going to be having golf carts shuttling people from parking to the front door because it is a little bit of a walk. So we invite you to attend and join us. We also have a leadership luncheon coming up on Wednesday, November 10th from 11:30 to 1 at Amici's. Brianna Warner, who is the president and CEO of Atlantic Sea Farms, is going to be speaking. She's going to discuss its innovative work with kelp for use in the natural food space. She's in all the Whole Foods, and she's a very dynamic speaker. So even if this isn't necessarily something that interests you, I think you'll be interested in how she's grown kind of a non-traditional industry into what it is today. You can register on the Chamber's website. On November 17th, we have our next business after hours at New Dimensions Federal Credit Union, the new location on Silver Street in Waterville. And, you know, short of something catastrophic happening, Ryan has assured us he's not canceling. November 4th is our red carpet annual awards ceremony. We're doing that at Enchanted Gables in Oakland from 5 to 8. Tickets are available for $55. You can go to the website. We have 13 people we're giving, 11 people that we're giving awards to this year. And it's a really good group, so we invite you to join us and celebrate their successes. We also have a business breakfast that morning, because not sure why. That will be right here at Best Western. Peter Piccone, who is the Coastal Enterprises, Inc. Small Business Development Center counselor, he's housed in the Chamber Building. So he does counseling in Somerset and Kennebec counties primarily. He's going to offer help for small businesses, sharing about the multiple resources that are available to small businesses, including outlets for payroll challenges, business maintenance or expansion, and helpful contacts and program information. And if you haven't heard, the Chamber is partnering with the Alphon Youth and Community Center to host the Festival of Trees. And that'll be at the Elm next to the post office on November 19th through 21st, and then Thanksgiving weekend from the 26th to the 28th. If you're interested in putting a tree in, you can go to clubaycc.org/festival-of-trees. So, our speaker today is Henry Beck. Poor Henry has had to sit through this. He is our Maine State Treasurer. He's a Waterville native. His topic today is By the Numbers, a discussion of Maine's fiscal position and services of the Office of the Maine State Treasurer. He's also going to discuss increased revenue sharing and federal support for towns and cities. When you're asking questions, I would respectfully ask that you please wait, raise your hand and we can get a microphone to you. This is being live streamed right now, and it's also being taped. It'll be rebroadcast on the local cable station in the greater Waterville area, and it will also be up on YouTube. So keep that in mind when you're making your remarks too. So at this time, I am going to welcome my friend and Chamber Board member.
Thank you, Kim, and good morning, everyone. In 2018, Henry Beck was elected by a joint convention of the 129th Maine Legislature to the office of State Treasurer. Treasurer Beck's priorities include prudent cash pool management, protecting the earned benefits of Maine public workers and educators, and completing bond sales in public for the common good of all Maine people. Treasurer Beck's government service began when he was elected to represent his neighborhood on the Waterville City Council in 2005. In 2008, he was elected to the Maine House of Representatives, representing parts of Waterville and Oakland during his senior year at Kobe College. In the legislature, Beck authored nearly 12 bipartisan bills that became law on issues from pharmacy audits to infant heart screening to Maine's Overdose Medicine Act. Beck was appointed House Chair of Joint Standing Committee on Insurance and Financial Services to serve on the 2011 Commission to apportion Maine's congressional districts. Beck attended the University of Maine School of Law and graduated on time while serving in the legislature. As an attorney in private practice, Beck represented Mainers and businesses involved in complex business disputes, serious criminal charges, insurance matters, and tax litigation. In 2018, Beck successfully argued an appeal before the Maine Supreme Judicial Court. Beck also holds a certificate of graduate study from the Muskie School of Public Service. Treasurer Beck's family came to Central Maine nearly 100 years ago and started a roofing company that is still operating. He is not the first treasurer with Waterville roots, serving after treasurers Sam Shapiro, David G. Lemoyne, and Bruce L. Poliquin. Treasurer Beck is a George J. Mitchell Scholar and me in welcoming Treasurer Henry Beck.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for that very kind introduction, and it's very nice to see everyone this morning. Like many people, this is sort of my first post-COVID event. We did a lot of these talks and discussions in summer of 2019, and it's just really special to me to be home and have you guys be one of my first. I took a look at the grade sheet you're going to give me at the end, and I saw that one of the items was, this presentation should be useful to your business. And so with that in mind, I'm going to spend a little more time than I planned on actually the very last slide about some upcoming law changes and programs. I'll do my best to navigate this PowerPoint. Should be simple. There's me. And just give you a roadmap really about the core functions of the office. I'll talk about cash management, trust funds briefly. I'll talk about the boards on which the treasurer, every treasurer, is an ex officio member. Talk briefly about our bond sale efforts. Talk about revenue sharing, something important I think to this community and people here. Have some fun with unclaimed property, and then also, again, talk about 2 upcoming programs. I'd be remiss if I didn't sort of give a shout out, a special hello to Representative Bruce White, Representative Bradstreet from Vassalboro is here. Ms. Espling is here, served with her. I believe she's here on behalf of Senator Collins. It's nice to see all of you this morning. People ask, well, what does the treasurer do? The day I was sworn in as treasurer, my mother said, why didn't you run for attorney general? Everyone knows what they do. No one knows what the treasurer does. If I had to describe it in a way, I am not the state's budget officer. There's literally a state budget officer, right? Not the state auditor, not the state CFO. In many ways, the treasurer functions as the state's banker. We bank the state's money, we give advice. It's up to the legislature and governor to take our advice or not. And every day is different, right? Every day's schedule is different. But probably the most important thing we do every day is we make decisions about how to bank the state's money, how to manage our state's cash pool. And that includes the money that you send to the treasurer by April 15th. That includes funds from the Mid-Maine system, our component units. That's state funds, federal funds, the general fund, the rainy day fund, all manner of it. And what the law allows us to do is they say, okay, treasurer, you are to take this money. You must manage it with safety, liquidity, and yield in mind. Yield comes last, right? Safety is first. And look, you have to pay your bills week by week, but to the extent there's any money left over, you are allowed to invest that money and have some earnings. Essentially, it's taxpayer supported, but it's not sort of taxpayer free as well. Earn some money for the law is very, very strict about which instruments we can invest. Most common one, overnight bank accounts. We make an intentional effort to use generally Maine-based banks. There's a bid system, right? We have to care about yield, but we try to park as much money as we can rationally in Maine bank institutions. That's good for everybody, good for the community. Also spend, we send our money a little bit in commercial paper, some corporate bonds, and a lot of federal obligations, a lot of and so we report a part of that system. And I'm sure you can sort of see all this, but this is just sort of the numbers of the cash pool, right? Here's the composition of what kind of investments in which we invest. As you can see, was I right? So yes, cash and cash equivalents plus CDs plus those banks, just about equal with the U.S. Treasury as of August 31st, 2021. Not very much in corporate paper, a little bit in commercial. We had made a decision a few months prior to sort of get out of that business. We're now back into it. but that's an allowable investment. More, no quiz afterwards. And I'm happy to provide this presentation as well, this deck to people that want to take a look, check our numbers, check our math. Give you a sense of our state's checkpoints, $3.882 billion. And that is that's all inclusive of state funds and federal funds. Biggest component of federal funds, of course, the CRF, Corona Relief Act under President Trump. Next is the American Rescue Plan. That was sort of the second or third round of COVID relief under President Biden. And then we have a separate category for emergency rental assistance. That's really being managed by Maine State to take it, and there's different reasons for that. We try to be very careful too. We don't want to take credit for everything, but if you take out that federal money, if we're talking about just sort of state-sourced funds, our state cash pool is still north of $3 billion. This is the highest it's ever been, and this is the result of course, economic activity, carry forwards, to an extent our investments. In August, we earned $3 million for the cash pool. Not an eye-popping figure, right? But we did so without risking taxpayer dollars. I used to give, it was lower, but I used to go around the state and share this figure. Well, the state had that. Well, give it back. What are you doing with all this? And it's just really important to note, we have to be precise in our language. This figure, this is not the rainy day fund. This is not the surplus, right? This is our operating account. This includes funds that have been appropriated and allocated. That's now at a record level. It's at almost $500 million. That reflects the biggest deposit in was back in July of 2021, right at the end of, or the beginning rather, of the new fiscal year. There was a deposit of about $225 million. That's a big amount. This is a record level. And, there is this perception throughout the state that this money is gone or it's been spent, but I'm here to tell you, to swear to you, it is there. And we can talk about sort of how that came about, the importance of that in our credit rating, and all of this, right? Our cash pool, the size of our rainy day fund, it doesn't happen magically. It happens first really because the people of Maine and the businesses of Maine are out there operating and earning and taking risk, and the state is benefiting from that. Our economic activity has been bolstered by federal support. So can you all think of some examples of federal support in the last year during COVID? Any PPP recipients here? Probably a few of you. Those $1,400 checks, the enhanced unemployment, all of that did stabilize things and it contributes to economic activity. One reason of many that we have the cash pool that we do and the rainy day fund that we do. One small service we provide is we administer a number of trust funds throughout the years, either by law or gift. The state manages these trust funds. Anyone here from KVCC? A few of you, good. Anyone? They benefit things like Baxter State Park, the Humane System, all manner of things. I think we manage a trust fund for a cemetery in Kittery. And unlike funds and that kind of thing. Here's a question for the legislators in the room. Let's say things don't go well and we need to find some money. Could you sweep these funds? Could you take $90 million from our trust funds to fill a hole in the budget? Probably no, right? It's an unsettled legal question. I mean, I think everyone's pretty clear. Cash pool advisory committee, it includes, of course, our office, the state controller, representatives of those other component units like the UMaine system. We every quarter to meet with us and our advisor to talk about what's going on, the kind of strategy we use. You may have seen in the news with regard to the cash pool and trust fund, the law will become effective in about a week. By law, Maine is no longer allowed to invest in for-profit prisons and also fossil fuels, and that affects our trust funds, affects our cash pool. I can talk about that too. Representative Bradstreet, I think, was part of this on his committee. There's a new trust fund for health insurance premium assistance for retired firefighters and law enforcement. For a number of years, this money was sort of floating in an operating account. And that was not the result of, say, negligence or a bad decision, but there wasn't a lot of thought sort of about how to make use of the money, how to grow the fund, maybe pay down what is technically not an unfunded liability, but there is going to be a future cost as premiums go up, more people retire. And so we're very happy to have established this new trust fund. There's a separate advisory committee for that as well. Anyone reading the divestment matter or hear about it on the radio besides the legislators? Peter, I'm sure you must have. Right, and so this, divestment is an interesting topic, right? It's an interesting debate in this world. On one hand, a lot of, I think people from the academy, if you will, the really trained finance people will say, well, divestment is just always a bad idea. You should never do it because it conflicts with fiduciary duty, it ties your hands. But the legislature saw fit to do this with fossil fuels. And it's not uncommon. If you go to the Midwest, for example, where counties are a bigger deal and they have their own cash pool, it's a rule in Michigan and Ohio and other places. They don't invest in foreign automakers. They just don't do it. They decide not to do it. You have to be careful, a bit of a slippery slope, right? But my perspective, what I offered the committee, and I think what the committee agreed, was simply invest. But it's just probably not a good investment anyway. Against divestment also is, well, if you own the stock, you're an owner, right? And you can participate in the way the company does business and how they change and how they innovate. At this amount, and with our cash pool, I'm just not sure if that's a credible argument. But in any event, it was a decision that was made by the legislature. We are complying. At our urging as well, we put an exception for fiduciary duty, so it's not like we're going to own absolutely no stock in fossil fuel. We just have to do it carefully and harm the beneficiaries of the trust fund. Here in our cash pool, the law also applies to the Maine pension system, but I am merely trustee there. I'm not in charge of that. And they are dealing with this law as well. For them, it will be a bit more complicated because they are invested in, private equity funds and infrastructure funds. It's not as simple as a trust fund or as a cash account. One privilege of being treasurer is I am on 11 boards and commissions by law. There's what I call the big three. There's the Maine pension system, Maine State Housing, the Finance Authority of Maine. Anyone here worked with the Finance Authority of Maine on a business loan or through banking? I love all of these equally, but those are of Maine because they don't just do business lending, they also do educational programming. They administer, they are the sponsor of our state's 529 plan, our college savings plan, which is a huge success, actually. It's a huge success around the country. Hundreds of millions of dollars invested in our program by people in of Maine and out of Maine. Also, here we are in Waterville. Obviously, one of the biggest benefits of our college savings plan is the gift from the Harold Alphon Foundation, both the matching grants and those grants at birth. A really unknown program that I like to tell people about is the Adaptive Equipment Loan Program, also known as the Kim Wallace Fund. Kim Wallace is a name you might recognize really from the 80s and 90s. This program is administered separately by an outside agency, but what it does is it provides very competitive but market rate loans to people with disabilities to buy adaptive equipment. So they're not grants, right, but they are very low rate, low interest rate for someone to buy a hearing aid, for example, or perhaps to modify a vehicle. And I mean, I encourage people to take a look at it, right, and suggest it. It has a mission of sort of meeting a need, right? So we don't have to be growing the book of business all the time, but it is, I think, a really innovative, important service offered by the state. And it's a program on which I am on the board. Bonding. You can call it bonding or debt management. I like bonding better. We have an upcoming bond in November. Anyone planning to vote in November? Planning to vote? When you go, make sure you read the treasurer's statement, right, that we're required to provide by law. It says, look, here is Maine's general obligation debt profile. If you vote for this, and if we sell it, here's what you can expect to pay over time in interest. We intentionally overestimate interest costs to give people sort of the most conservative information. How many people sort of, and you don't have to say, but how many people just always vote yes? They take a look and they go, oh, water, that sounds good. Oh, roads, that sounds good. Anyone do that? You don't have to say. People are more likely to say they always vote no. Who always votes no on the bonds? This crowd, I know this crowd. One thing that's important to note, I mean, and I think legislators struggle with this question all the time, is, you know, to incur a general obligation debt, both bodies have to have a 2/3 vote, right? And then it has to go to the people. The term of art is ratification. It's really voter approval. It's important to know, though, that even if it goes through that process, there's a $100 million bond for roads and bridges, right? And it goes through the legislature, and those are the most popular. I have some thoughts about that, but it's not really up to me. Those are the most popular. And the voters, they go, oh, yeah, roads, that sounds good. Important to note that, you know, the moment you check that ballot, debt is not incurred. There's a further process that depends really on the treasurer's office, and here's a legal and philosophical debate, the governor's office as well, to make the decision whether or not to incur the debt and when to do it. And we don't borrow right away. We don't, for example, we think of this analogy. If you were to, if you know you're going to build a new house or, you know, a new building, you're not going to get the construction loan and then see what happens, right? Month after month after month. We only go to market when we know there are projects that are shovel ready, they're ready to go, we have to pay them. The Sheridan Corporation has to get paid, or who have you. And what we do is, throughout the year, our office works with different departments to first borrow internally from ourselves. So, okay, we know that June and August, that's the road paving season, but we need this money in the bank now for the Sheridan Corporation. I'm picking on them. I'm not sure if they really do many roads and bridges, but Pike Industries, we need this money in the bank, and so we borrow from ourselves. We borrow at the rate of the cash pool, and then that builds our total figure for the June sale. We go to market, and we pay ourselves back what we've already borrowed, and there's some money left over. Being part of this process it's pretty cool to me, you know, because if you live and work in this state, there's just no question that you benefit from these capital expenditures, right? I mean, think of everything, every road, most roads that you drive on. If there's a new student for rather specific projects, maybe specific industries, for which do we seed R&D development for the Portland waterfront on a statewide level or what have you. But the process is such the decision was made to do what's called and the alternative there is what they call a negotiated sale. To conditions in the market, not a political statement. I promised Kim I wouldn't be boring and I wouldn't be too political. June 2019, we had a 2-day negotiated sale, and somebody, you probably guessed who, had a tweet about a deal with China that was coming up. It was really close, never happened. But so as a result, the stock market went flew over there. We were all having a hard time getting buyers for our bonds because, by the way, every single day, you name it, the state of Maine or the St. Louis Water District or the Florida School Authority, they're all going to market and competing for investors and buyers. And so I tend to favor a negotiated sale. It gives you some time, some breathing room to adapt. Last June, we had a par amount, $117 million. I'm not sure it was on the next slide, but we like to brag about well, you can sort of get a sense, do the math quickly in your head. To fund that amount of projects, total debt service over 10 years, 10-year payments, flat equal payments, $122 million. Pretty good cost of money. That is because, first of all, it was a good time in the market. There was some luck probably, partially, but also we're a good investment. States are good investments. We have taxing power. We always pay our bills, state bonds, general obligation bonds. It's not, we have this vision, right, of the state treasurer going to Wall Street and giving a road show to wealthy individuals to buy bonds. Anyone know the biggest purchaser of state bonds? Anyone here in insurance? So insurance companies, State Farm, huge buyer of bonds. And maybe you can explain it better than I can, has to do with sort of their stress test requirements and the payback period. Big institutional investors like these bonds. We sort of romanticize, we think about the greatest generation buying U.S. savings bonds for $500 a piece or $50 a piece. But these bonds, they come in bigger blocks from bigger buyers. That said, we made a priority, and we could do this because it's a negotiated sale. We said, look, if you are a Maine resident, a Maine buyer, either a person or an insurance company or bank, we will give you priority. You can buy first, Maine, and then New England, and then nationally, just because we thought that was sort of part of our purpose. This is what's coming up. It's called the Governor's Bond Package. It's sort of no longer the Governor's Bond Package, it's kind of the bond package on the ballot. This debt service figure, hopefully that's what you'll see on the Treasurer's statement when you go into the ballot booth. There's no statutory requirement, but there's a general rule of practice is that our debt service ratio must be less than 5%, meaning if you take the entire budget, including the highway fund and everything, debt service on your bonds should be less than 5%. That's just a good figure to have. That's what we look at the Maine Bond Bank when we're deciding whether or not to approve borrowing by towns and cities. We take a look at that as well. So there it is. There's the bond package coming up. You can do some early homework. Credit rating. Are people familiar with this? They've heard about this probably, right? Big source of pride. It just is for every issuer. I think we all remember the very beginning of COVID, those first few days, right? Part of my job too are sort of meet and greets with people. We've got 20 minutes, all right. And we'd meet with these bankers that would say, hey, nice to meet you. Oh, by the way, if the state ever needs a loan, here's my card. We can loan you money if you're crunched for cash. I remember thinking, well, thank you, but what a silly idea. That will never happen, right? It did happen a bit in 2008, 2007 during that crisis. But there was real concern, I think, from every state, red state, blue state, towns, cities, about what our cash position would be. how things were going to go. We're going to get a downgrade in our credit because of what was happening in the economy. That did not happen in Maine, didn't happen in 2020, didn't happen in 2021. We had our stable ratings affirmed by both Moody's and S&P. Just to give you a sense of what they said about us, this is from this past year. They like our active budget management. This is another way of saying we've added to the rainy day fund, right? We're proud of this. That cash pool size has just grown and grown and grown and grown. Really, really proud of this. And you're seeing the agencies talk more about this, the credit risk of climate change, what a risk that is for states and for issuers. But they give us a nice shout out. They said, look, Maine is particularly vulnerable because of our coastline and our weather, but they praised the governor's approach to climate change and how that can mitigate some of that risk. This is familiar to you guys in business, everyone, demographics and workforce. This is our biggest challenge at the rating agencies, right? It's, we can do everything right. We can have, our financials can look amazing, but they continue to be concerned about the long-term demographic profile, something we have to address. I'm not giving it enough time, but we are crunched for time. Revenue sharing. I remember being on the Waterville City Council and also when I served in the legislature, this was a constant battle and concern, and no one could do any right here, right? Not Republicans, not Democrats. It was never really enough. People were always very upset about this. And I never really imagined we'd be in this position, but as a result of the governor's budget supported by the legislature, I think everyone here, we have gradually increased revenue sharing to towns and cities. This is, of course, good for property taxpayers. Just to give you, I'm biased, but just to give you a snapshot that this isn't sort of happening magically, it's intentional. What the legislature does is they decide this figure, right? This 3 or 3.75 or 4.5. They say, look, okay, towns and cities, we're going to take the entire sum of our sales tax, income tax, and use tax. We're going to set the percentage, and then month by month, the treasurer will wire this money to the city of Waterville. And so, since 2019, the governor and legislature have slowly worked up to the magic 5%. As a result, like every community in the state, Waterville is getting more revenue sharing. Ideally, that's good for property taxpayers. Ideally, it means you stabilize the property tax rate, maybe even reduce the property tax rate. In August, Waterville got, this was statewide. In August, we gave $16 million out to the towns and cities. Unclaimed property. Anyone heard of this? Probably, right? This is the most public-facing part of my job, right? I have a big check I carry around sometimes, that kind of thing. But every state in the country says, okay, usually the treasurer. The treasurer is in charge of the Unclaimed Property Program. And if you're anybody, if you're any business really, but especially if you're a bank, insurance company, a big employer, if you have property of someone else, of one of your customers or employees or whoever, and that property is dormant for a particular period of time, and it varies by property type, every year in November for us, you give that to the treasurer's office. And over the years, since we've had this program, there's still over 270 million unclaimed. And so people say, well, how does this happen? Like, how do people lose money? Well, it happens, right? Let's say, it happened to me. Let's say you change car insurance companies and And I also share this figure, and people say, whoa, that's a lot of money. Let's use that money for something. But that's the total lie into the fiscal year. We gift to the Appropriations Committee $7 million or so to sort of finish the budget. That That all said, it's not our money, it's the people's money. So we work hard to find the owners. So far this fiscal year, the average payout, $585. The largest payout, I'm not sure if this is ever or the last fiscal year, $377,000. We sent them certified mail. We sent a staff member to their house to knock on their door. We called them, mailed them. And finally I said, look, just send them a letter. And the guy called the next week. A gentleman in my office from Waterville, Jeff, spoke with him. He said, well, I'm glad you called. Just to confirm, this is your address, right? Yep. And this is your cell phone number we've been calling, right? Yep. So I share all that to say, check the list. Go to MaineUnclaimedProperty.gov, check the list. That's the website. 24/7. Oh, look at this. During this one, but I am. Calling for Senator. $430. So if you work for Kennebec Savings, Delta Ambulance, Thomas, Town of Oakland, KBCC, we've got your property. Check it out. Make a claim.
Everybody's on their phone.
Yeah, I'm not offended. Please check your phone. How are we for time, Kim? We've got
15 minutes.
Okay, perfect. First of all, any questions? Probably have questions, but anything burning? Okay. Two things to know about, especially the second one if you are a business owner in the state. But first, the ABLE program. This is the product of a federal law, the Stephen Beck Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. It's modeled after the college savings program. The Fed said, okay, for people with disabilities, you should be allowed to have the dignity of saving money. And you should be able to do so without losing your Social Security, without being counted against you. And so every state, you are allowed to set up this program. It's actually in 529A of the IRS code. You can save up to a certain amount, don't lose Social Security. You have to spend the money on qualified expenses, pretty liberally defined. Anything to sort of better your quality of life. That could be school tuition, that could be a car, that could be adaptive equipment, lots of things. And around the country, of course, Maine is different. We're totally unique, right? Around the country, most of them operate, again, like the college savings programs. There's a network of states run by a big investment bank. To their credit, they're also really investment products. They grow. But before my time, in 2015, my predecessor, Treasurer Hayes, met with advocates for Mainers with disabilities, and what she heard was, hey, that sounds great, but we don't really want something like that. We want something simpler, and wouldn't it be nice if it was run by a Maine institution, a Maine brick and mortar institution? And so, for several years, and this has occupied a lot of my time, we've negotiated with Bangor Savings Bank, which is a great bank, by the way, to have a very simple, ABLE product. It's a checking account with a debit card. And as of last week, finally, we had to deal with the SEC and MSRB, you can open one of these accounts. And you, by the way, you can gift, right? If you have a nephew with disabilities, you can gift them a certain amount of money. They can have this account. Almost like a special needs trust. Dan Ecker was here, but almost like a special needs trust, but it's simpler, it's easier. So that's coming up. Please sign up. They are, the money belongs to the account holder. They're not insured by the state of Maine or anything like that, but it is a state-sponsored program. The next is Maine's Retirement Savings Program. This is very much similar to what Oregon has, Illinois has, I think California, Connecticut. We all know this around the country. People are not saving enough for retirement. Lots of reasons for that. But what we have seen fit to do, and it was For most years, it was sort of a democratic idea, but this year it was very bipartisan, actually. There's going to be a new law next week that says, okay, in different waves, if you are an employer, I think it's the minimum is 3 or more employees, you must offer something to your employees, some retirement program. Not required to match, you must offer it. And many employers do, right? They already do. If you don't, as a default, your new employees will be enrolled in a very low fee, probably a Roth IRA program facilitated by the state. The default is you're enrolled, but if you're an employee, your first day of work, so you get your W2, your emergency contact form, you get your enrollment form for this program. But you can say, I'm good, no thank you, I don't want to save, or I want to go somewhere else. And the accounts will be portable, of course, they belong to the account holder. It's not a state pension system, right? It's not going to be managed by the state, it will be independent contractors. And again, no requirement for an employer match. I bet you have lots of questions. If you're in HR, I bet you have lots of questions about it. We are standing up this program as we speak. The first wave of requirements, I believe, is in April of 2023, and that is for employers of 25 or more, which again, I bet most of those employers have programs. They are essentially exempt. And we are working through the details. How do you certify that? How do you enforce that? What does the program look like? What is the withholding amount? What is the default withholding? All that kind of thing. S&P for something else, not about our credit rating, but something else. So, want you to be aware of those things, and I encourage you to ask any questions or complaints or suggestions now. You've got 10 minutes.
How soon will the rescue dollars come out to businesses?
So there's the American Rescue Plan, right? And we are in receipt of that money. And the legislature, it's pretty amazing they got it done, I think like in 72 hours or something, this negotiation about how it will be deployed. The governor has given a lot of deference about how to administer it and dole it out. I cannot tell you from memory every business support program. Much will be administered by DECD, but that law, sort of the enabling law to spend it, is not effective until next week. And then there's a longer timeline. What does it look like, right, and how much? It will certainly be over time, and there's also a federal requirement about when the money is spent. But that horizon is longer. So I think the answer is as soon as possible, right, to meet the purposes of the ARP and also to make a difference. So, but I would encourage you to check out DECD and see what they're up to, and also check out the
Treasurer Beck, very informative, and I appreciate your office and specifically Jeff, who has been helpful when I've asked questions about the unclaimed property for my constituents. My question, and you've touched on it, amount, percentage that is required to be at. And I know you had mentioned something about there's always a balance, like how much should we leave there? Because people say, well, if you have X amount, shouldn't we have that back? So can you touch on that?
Yes, and there's sort of three answers. One is in the law. I think in the law that establishes the fund, it says, look, there's essentially a ceiling, and once you reach that ceiling, as far as the distributions from surplus, you send the money somewhere else. It's I wouldn't say it's a political question, but there's sort of this debate about what percentage of the general fund or what percentage should it be for operating. If you sort of go to the nonpartisan experts, they might say 15% or more, but they also say, look, it is case specific, right? And governments have different needs and obligations. We are not at that level yet, but we're on our way. Prior to that, the governor's deposit of $225 back in July, I think we were at 6 or 7%. We've obviously gone up more. The other sort of thing you have to say about the rainy day fund is it has to have a use, right? If it does in fact rain, you should make use of it. You should have a plan to pay it back, but it should not sort of exist for the sake of itself. It has a purpose. But I think there's consensus that we want to keep adding to it, and there's a debate about the percentage of what denominator it should be.
We have a lot of municipal managers and counselors in the room, and I was hoping you could speak a little bit to how the federal monies that are coming down, how the municipalities can use that to benefit their constituents and their communities.
Sure, and the U.S. Treasury's released guidance on this, and the legislature saw fit to sort of park this program and responsibility to the DAF's commissioner. They've set up a website portal, I think hopefully it's up now, for the town and city to, yes, send us the money, we certify, here's our routing number, I think even, please send us the money. U.S. Treasury, and this has actually been, in my opinion, sort of the amazing thing about ARP as compared to CRF. ARP money can be used to replace lost revenue, right? That was sort of our biggest ask, to sort of have an immediate response to the pandemic, whatever that might be, but also sort of most amazingly, a third or fourth prong, you also may use the money to benefit communities that were disproportionately affected by the pandemic. So that could be low-income persons, persons of color. There's an amazing amount of discretion, I think intentionally, both in the law and in the rule promulgated by U.S. Treasury. So I don't want to say you can use it for anything, but it is a very broad use, and that was, that's not a trick, that's intentional, right? Congress and the president saw fit to give the second round of relief for stimulus reasons and otherwise. So.
I have one more question, Erica. Revenue sharing. Wasn't a law passed that it had to be 5%? How does every administration, I'm not political either, get away with it not being 5%?
Well, it will be, everything goes to plan, which I think will be next passed. It is statutory language. It's not enshrined in the Constitution, and there are very frequently sort of
Well, like the school funding formula thing.
correct, which we are also on target for that, right? Another sort of, if you had asked me 2 years ago if that would happen, I would have given you a non-answer.
ARPA has been particularly difficult for the local governments to navigate. The information that came out originally was you're going to be able to use this for anything. And the noose started tightening as we got closer and closer time to get the money. Now we've got money with still a a lot of gray area as far as what we can spend the money on. And I know we've got to report to the Fed on that. Is the state treasury also going to be that we're required to do going to the state level?
So the state controller is, by a law change, has been, say charged with, but been tasked with certifying to the feds about proper use of all ARP funds, and say essentially the responsibility sort of finally rests with the final recipient. You know, people have sort of come, what do you think about this? Is this okay? I don't have the authority to say, yes, it's okay, but I mean, I think what advice I have given, especially to legislators that try to make use of the money for their ideas, is literally sprinkle throughout your enabling document, citation to the Treasury rule, talk about COVID, just like taking a Yes, I mean, again, it's harder than CRF, but it is public money. There are, the feds have said, you can have this, but it's subject to our requirements.
Henry, you've mentioned something about the financial risk of climate change. Is there something that you as the treasurer are involved in that? And
Huge part of it. I mean, and for example, too, we're a little quick for time, I know, but you know, I don't think the American insurance industry is unlike in Europe. Doing everything we can about it. We are in the same boat, no pun intended, as many other issuers, right? And so my job, again, has been to be a link to the agencies, occasionally maybe advise the interested parties on ways to pay for ARP funds, for community planning. That was passed in June. So.
Let's give Henry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a gift for you that I will give you at the end. Thank you for being here. Henry will stick around for a few minutes if anybody has any specific questions that they want to ask. At this time, we do provide those to our committee mentioned, but we also provide it to Henry for feedback for him. Breakfast spotlighter to do a table out back during one of these breakfasts, then just let the office know and we'll sign you up. And want to thank Bixby for the chocolates that she put at everybody's seat on the table. Thank you so much for that. I bet they'll all be gone, even the empty seats. So now we're going to pull the prizes I mentioned earlier, the door prizes, and I do want to let everybody here know the Chamber's Board of Directors has taken a unanimous position to support the infrastructure bond, so we are down with that. Okay, first gift is going to be a $50 gift certificate to Cervasis, donated by one of our business spotlighters, Heartland, and that's going to Representative Bradstreet. Give it to Sam? Okay, thank you. It's right on the border there. It's $50, so. Gift bag with a variety of Bixby and Company products valued at $50. Bixby is going to Representative Bruce White. Yeah, I figured you would. Give away one chocolate, that'll make it under $50. Our next gift is a $25 gift certificate donated by Emery's Meats, and that is going to Mark Fisher. Where am I now? We have a $10 gift certificate and a coffee mug donated by Aroma Joe's. And I don't know if you've been to Aroma Joe's lately, but the line is out KMD. And that's going to Sam Burdick. It is your lucky day. You need to go buy a lottery ticket. We have that lavender and eucalyptus bath bomb that I love, donated by Valley Spring Essentials, and that is going to Sabrina Jandro of the Central Maine Growth Council. You don't have to deliver that one. We can get her at home. And then last, we have a $10 gift certificate and coffee mug, again donated by Aroma Joe's, and that is going to Dan Ecker, Esquire. He left. It's not going to him then. That's a rule. Garrett, yes. So that concludes our program for today. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you at chamber events upcoming. Have a great day.